Hello guys, it's Rob with Tech. I'm gonna bring you another video for OpenMediavault. It's kind of a new 2024 video on how to set it up from the beginning. I'm gonna try to elaborate more on how to do the setup if you're like a first-time user for OpenMediavault. But basically, first of all, we have to download the ISO for OpenMediavault. You can use the Rufus tool to create that ISO into a bootable USB. But I am using Proxmox today, so I'm gonna do the installation with you. So I'm just gonna go ahead and expand this. Go ahead and start it up. So this just depends on the parameters that you're gonna use. Also, one thing that if you don't have internet, it's gonna be it's gonna be hard for you to get the installation going. I have noticed that before. So please, like if you were installing this, it's better if you had a connection, a direct connection to it, just for the initial setup. So here's the host name. I'm just gonna name it OMV-YT. Just whatever you want to name it. I'm just gonna enter on that. Now this password, I'm just gonna make a simple password, but you should create a secure password for yours. Make sure you remember that password because you're gonna need it to SSH to root so you can install the OMV-Extras. Now here you're just gonna install it on your hard drive. I'm gonna use a 20 gigabyte for the installation. So I'm basically, the format that I decided to use is basically, this would be your boot drive, and then the second drive that I have here would be like your extra hard drive. Right, so the mirrors is based on your location. Just gonna enter it. I don't have a proxy. All right, so it just finished. I'm gonna click continue so we can restart. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the media. All right, and then we can go back to the console and it should give us an IP once it finishes restarting. All right, so you just finished booting, so you're gonna go to this IP address that you see up here, the 10.0.0.194. Yours might be different. Yours might be 192.168. So it just depends on your network. So that's what I'm gonna be connecting to this IP address right here. So I'm gonna open up a new tab, do 10.0.0.194. All right, guys. So the first boot, you're always gonna do admin for the username, and then for the password is gonna be openmediavault. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and close this message out. And then here for the dashboard, you can click on settings. This is what you want to add. So usually you can select all and then remove what you don't want. Since this is a VM, I'm going to remove smart, but this is for your hard drive so you can see the health status. So I wouldn't recommend removing this one. And I'm also going to remove the ones that have table because it's kind of repetitive, but it depends which one you like more. So just go ahead and mess around with this. Click save. There you have the little dashboard. Now, first thing we're going to do is going to update the password. We don't want to have the default OpenMediavault password. I mean, it's up to you. You want to keep it like that, but it is recommended to change it. So I'm going to go ahead and click change password. Let me change it to something different. All right, so we just changed the password. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to set up a static IP address on this device. It's just going to depend on your router because it depends how your DHCP is working, but basically you don't know how to do that, go ahead and Google how to set a static DHCP IP reservation on Google, and if not, just leave me a comment. You want me to make a video on how to do that? But in my case, I already know that I can use the first 100 IP addresses, since I don't have any. The DHCP for my router doesn't assign addresses there because I have it set up like that. But that's where I'm coming up with this IP address. If you want to see more information on this, I can create another video that's specific and explaining the network. Now you have to add the DNS. I'm going to use my router for DNS, but if you don't know your router's DNS, you can just use the Google's DNS, which is 8.8.8.8. After I save this, I'm going to lose the connection because right now we're pointing at the 194, and I changed it to 40. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the changes. Now we're going to go ahead and open another tab, 10.0.0.40. And it's going to open up on this side, but that's because we changed the address. And the reason I did the static reservation is that just so you don't lose. So whenever you access your network shares, you can get it, access it on the same IP address every time. I'll give it my new password. I'm going to close this one. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to install the updates. So you can do a check for new updates. Just basically add all the repos, anything that is new, then we can just download. It's going to take a little while since it's the first time. So I'll just go ahead and skip through some of this. All right, so I just finished doing the updates. I'm going to click close. Now, yeah, every time you do updates, you have to apply them. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the check mark. Whenever you get to the screen, you can just left click and you should reload the page. If that doesn't work, you can do Control Shift and then R at the same time, and it should refresh it. So now we go back to dashboard. We can look, see if there's any more updates. So it says that system restart is required. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Right, this took a little while, but it finally rebooted. So we're gonna go ahead and sign back in. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is, you have an option, and this is just preference. You can do the dark mode. So I'm not sure how that's gonna look on the video, but I guess we can leave it like that. So the other thing that I like to change is that if you were to leave your desk and you leave this open, it's gonna time out. I think it's like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So if you go to dashboard, system workbench, you can see it's a 5 minutes. I like to put mine on 30 minutes. This is like however you want to do it, but that's what I like to do, the 30 minutes. So in case that I leave somewhere, come back, it's still open. Another thing that I like to do is force the SSL and TLS so we can use HTTPS. Now before we do this, let's go ahead and we have to create a certificate for this. So we go to certificates. I'm just gonna discard this and then go to SSL, create a new certificate. Now I'd like to put mine on 5 years. Common name, you can leave it like that, or you can call it whatever you put your name for your openmediavault. And then the other thing that is needed is the country. So I just add that. I click create. Now we have this certificate for this. We'll apply the settings. Now we go back to workbench. We can go ahead and change this to 30 minutes. Do the SSL. Now certificate. You can include your certificate. And then I'm gonna force. If you force, you can no longer use port 80. You're gonna have to use 443. So I want my connection to be encrypted. So I'm just gonna use the force SSL. I'm gonna save this. Now for the IP, let's apply this. Now here we just left click and it should load into the new one once it applies the changes. Or let's go ahead and try connecting to it again. Okay, so there what I did is Control Shift R. Okay, it took a while, but It's just good. I did Control Shift R and then I left clicked again. It finally worked. And basically, it's now if you look at it, it's using HTTPS. You don't have to do that. It's just that I like to have it on the encrypted traffic, so that's the reason I did that. All right, so I'm logged back in. Real quick, guys, I forgot to mention that you have to correct the time equals system date and time. It doesn't automatically put this correct, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add mine in here. This is for the NTP. I'll just click save. All right, back to the video. Now what I'm gonna do is create the user for my the Samba user, so we can have a user whenever we connect to the folders. So you go to users, we'll just create, and I'm gonna create one called Robert password. This would be a secure password that you want, or the password that you want for this particular user. And I always like to use bin bash, but that's in case that you SSH into the server, which I do plan to do that with this user. So for as far as the permission goes, I want to make this one a sudo user, which is like instead of you can run commands, root commands, without needing to have the root privilege. So it's called, we need SSH to, so we can SSH into it, sudo, and we also need the one for users. I'll explain this in a little bit. Right, save, apply the changes. Now we're going to go ahead and create our first shared folder. So if you go to storage, you have to go to file systems. Here we're going to create ext4. You can use ext4. Wait, it depends what file system you want to use, but the ones that get used most is ext4 or XFS. So I'm going to use ext4 for this. Now I'm going to use my 32 gigabytes. This would be the hard drive that you have, that you're using. So we'll just go ahead and save. That will create the file system for that particular hard drive. Now, after you do that, you have to mount it. Now here, I'm going to specify a description for it. So I'll do shared drive. Or no, you know what? I'm going to do data drive. So I can know that that's the secondary drive. We'll have to apply the changes. All right, so just finish doing that. Now we're going to do create the shared folder. You're going to do create. This is the name you want to put. I'm just going to do data for mine. And then this is going to be the data address that we just created. Now here, the defaults are fine. The administrator read write and users read write. So as long as you're part of the users group, you'll be able to access the data drive. So here on the tags, I'm just going to do data shared folder. It's just so we can have a description for it and it'll be easier when you're reading it later on. Now we can just apply. Now, if you look at the permissions, you can highlight and click on ACLs, and you can look here in the bottom, you have your owner and the groups. So the owner has read, write, execute, which is considered full access, and then users also. So as long as any users that you create, you add them into the users group, they'll have access to this data share. Now, if you want it to be more granular, you can create groups. You can change the groups here. And then if you do that, just make sure you click replace and recursive and save that. But in this case, we already added the Robert account to user, so it's going to have full access to this data folder, so that's what we want. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is install the OMV-Extras. Now here, I know sometimes in the past, the people wanted to see the command, but I'm going to show you that you can just go to Google, do OMV-Extras, and you can find the form right here. So if you click on this this link, you can see it's right here, the wget. You can just copy directly this from here. You do a copy, and then if you open up a notepad, right, you can just paste the command in here, and then you can just just make sure you're copying this, because sometimes it adds a space here in the end, so you just want to make sure you just copy this. So once you do that, you need to SSH into your OpenMediavault. So the way you do that is you're gonna go into your command prompt, you search for CMD and in CMD, and then you open up this right here. You're gonna do SSH, then you're gonna do root, then you're gonna do and then the IP address for your OpenMediavault server. The one I'm using is 140, so I mean not 140, it's 40. Now you're gonna do yes. Now password, that's a password that you used when you first set up OpenMediavault. Now here we're just gonna do right click and it's gonna copy the command, and you're gonna click enter and it's gonna start the OpenMediavault. I mean the OMV-Extras. It's gonna take a little while. All right, so just look here. It says Control-Shift-R whenever we go in the browser. So that's done. We can put this to the side. If we go back to OpenMediavault and we go to dashboard, here in system, you can see that we don't have OMV-Extras. So if you do a Control-Shift-R, it's gonna refresh the page for us, and now we have the OMV-Extras. Now here we're gonna install Docker. But here we're just gonna click save, and that's gonna enable the Docker repo to be allowed. Right, so you're gonna go to plugins and you're gonna search for compose. You're gonna install this. All right, so that's finished. So we go to services, you should see compose now is in here. Now we do need to set up this compose file folder, share folder, and the data share folder here, right here for this too. But before we do that, we need to go back to I like to create a specific user for the Docker container. So I'm going to go to users and I'm going to create another user, and I'm going to call this one app user. Password, I'll specify a password for this user. Now for this one, since you don't want this account to be logged in, you can use the no login. And this is just that you cannot remote to this with this user. Groups, we need to add it to users. So let me save this. Okay, so now we're gonna enable the SMB service so we can have our shares. So we go to services and we go to SMB settings. I'm gonna go ahead and enable this. This is the process for SMB, so we can connect to shares on Windows computers. I'm gonna save. We have to apply the settings. Or you go back to SMB, then you can do shares. Now here you can create a share, and we're gonna go ahead and add the data. Now here, if you want to make it a guest, you can do guest only, but I'm gonna do no because we're gonna use the Robert account to access this. So we're just gonna leave it like that. Here I'm just gonna do a description, which will be SMB data share. Right now you can change if you want to create a recycling bin, like in case that if you delete by accident a file, you'll keep it in there. If you were to enable this, you can restrict, like specify like files bigger than 25, they won't get added here. I'm not gonna use the recycling bin, so I'm just gonna skip that, and then I'm gonna go to click save. We have to apply the changes. Now it depends on we're gonna go ahead and create the app data folder and the compose folder for Docker. So it just depends how you want to add it, because you can just go ahead and go back to storage, share folders, and just add Docker, app data, and compose. But in the way that I'm going to do it is, if you open up, because we already set up the share, so you can just do // and then you can do 10.0.0.40. This would be the IP address for your OpenMediavault. So here we're going to specify the user that we created. All right, so we have our data. Now here you can create a Docker folder if you want it to be part of the share. Now, so that's the way I'm going to do it. But if you don't want it to be part of the share, you can go ahead and create it on, let me minimize this. I already created the folder. You can go ahead and create it here. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our folder here. We created the data and we created the Docker folder. So if you open up the Docker folder, we can create the compose, and then we can create the app data like that. So we can minimize this. Now we can go back here to the shared folders. We can click create. Now we're gonna do this compose. Click file systems and you click data drive. Now if you were to click here on the browse directory, you go up, you're gonna find data, Docker, and this is their compose. We're gonna click on compose. We're gonna choose this one. Now the permission is administrator read write, user read write. Tags, we'll just do compose for Docker. Save this, and then we'll create the same one for the app data. So go data drive, go here, up data, Docker, app data. Then we'll choose. All right, so the permission looks correct. We'll just do app data for Docker. We'll save this. Now we need to apply the changes. All right, so now that we set up the app data and the compose, now we're gonna go ahead and go to services, compose, settings. Now here on compose files, you're gonna go ahead and click the drop down and you're gonna select compose. Now for the data, you're gonna do the drop down and select the app data. Now, when we do the compose files, there's something that was added recently, not too long ago, that instead of doing all the paths in the compose files, you can just use the change to compose data path. I'm gonna go ahead and show you. We're gonna create portainer on here. So once we add that here, the compose folder and the app data folder, we can click save. All right, so the changes have applied. Now we can go back to files and we can create our first container. So here I'm going to create portainer. So portainer description portainer. Now for the file, I'm going to go ahead and add it to, I'm going to go ahead and create a GitHub account and include the link so you can just copy and paste the files directly from there. Because I have copied the file, I'm just going to do a right click paste. Now, usually in the past, we would have to change here. We had to put the srv / dev and the whole path that OpenMediavault will give us. But now by us setting up the settings and adding the app data, we can just go ahead and use it like this. You can just specify this. This would automatically throw stuff into the app data folder if you set it up the same way that I did before. Now, the only thing that we need to add is a folder like portainer. This would be you'll create a folder in the app data by you including portainer here. And then the other thing would be this right here, the portainer_data. But if you were doing another container, instead of portainer, you would put the container name right here. And then whatever else it has here. It's a lot easier now. The other thing that you have to change on this is the PUID and the PGID. So the way to check that, if you open up the connection that we have with the SSH, you can just go ahead and do ID appuser. And if we see this one's 1001 for the UID, which I already have it like that. And then the GID is 100, so PGID 100. So this looks correct. Now we can just go ahead and click save. Right, then we can just go ahead and click up. It's gonna take a little while. It's gonna download the portainer image, container image. Okay, so we just finished. Now, in order to access this, you're gonna have to go to another tab and then enter the address for your openmediavault, and then do :9443. Another thing you have to do in the front, you have to do https://. Now you do it advanced, and here you can see the portainer. I'm just gonna go ahead and type a password. This has to be a secure password. All right, now here we can just go to environments, click local, or you click home, and then here on this local, then containers, and then you can have containers. Now this is another platform that you can use to manage all your containers. You can do add containers and do all of this from here. I mean, if you want to see portainer videos from me, just go ahead and ask me, and I can create videos here. But that's everything in this video. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know. If you have any video ideas, let me know. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Thank you.